Hi there, this is Heather Estes, and I'm a teacher for the Arbor Learning Community. We had class for our cultures class last Tuesday on May 19th, and here's a lesson recap of what we learned about. We checked out refugee families this week, refugee and migrant families, but specifically refugees. We also read a book from a Syrian refugee point of view and what that means for families and their children and things like that. So please take a look. So, we read this beautiful story called Stepping Stones, A Refugee Family's Journey. This is by Marguerite Roers and Nizar Ali Badir. Beautiful pictures. I would encourage you to check out the story along with our Read Aloud video. We also had a packet that we worked on. We didn't complete everything, but it went along with our pages we saw together online. So we talked about the story of refugees and migrants in an appropriate way, I could say, for students and children. And it was something that we were able to go through together in order to think about strength, courage, and victory as refugee families go through so much. So going page by page in our packet here, we talked about what refugees are, who they are. We first saw that sometimes people must leave their home because of things like natural disasters, war, or because it is unsafe. People who are forced to leave their home behind in search of a safer place to live are called refugees. And we did mention migrant families because that is a huge issue as well, along with refugee plight and all the things they have to deal with, but we focus mainly on refugee families. So some people choose to leave their homes in search of a better life for their family or to join family members in another country. People who choose to move to a new country or a new region in search of a better life are called migrants, meaning like they migrate to another spot. So we read some things together like who are refugees and migrants, and we use this as a discussion piece. What are 5 reasons people move from their homes? So in our packet we looked together, and mainly we use it, like I said, as a discussion piece, but I went and highlighted the things that we wanted to talk about together. So the red for the refugees and blue for migrant families. So sadly sometimes people must leave their homes because it's too dangerous to stay. Wars, natural disasters, acts of terrorism, people having to move to a safer place, those are refugee families. Sometimes people might be searching for a better life. They have to join other family members somewhere else. They might be looking for a better life or a better job. So these are some things that we talked about. We didn't write this in, but you're welcome to. So then we moved on to the next page together of looking at where refugee families might be coming from, where they might be fleeing from. So I did not focus in on one country with the students this week because refugee families can come from many parts of the world. This is not something that is just isolated in one part of the world. So we looked a little bit about where their journey starts, and we looked at a globe together. I pointed out the 3 most popular unfortunate places in the world that our refugees are fleeing from currently. So we read a story about Syrian refugees. Syria is in the Middle East. We're over here, USA of course. Then we have Europe, we have Asia, Africa, and now we can see the Arabian Peninsula here. And there's also Afghanistan in there. We have Syria, where we talked about, and we also have South Sudan. There's Sudan and South Sudan as a part of that as well. So South Sudan, fleeing from that country too. So I made sure that students were getting a little bit confused. They were wondering, okay, what's the flag look like? What language do they speak? And I had to keep reminding them that refugees come from many countries all over the world, and sadly many thousands upon thousands of people are trying to find a better place to live because their current country is no longer safe for them. So we realized that, and again this was a talking point, we didn't read through every piece of this without having to go over our time, but hard to say goodbye. In our story it talks specifically about how the girl in the story was very sad because she knew that once they left home, she would never again hear her rooster crow, her goat, bleeding and crying out. She would not be able to walk the same land that she walked on. And it was sad for her to leave, and they had to leave quickly, and even at night sometimes. So, talking about that again. So, in that, we actually skipped to the very last page of, we skipped to the very last page and said, you know what, if you had to leave quickly and you didn't have a way of choosing you didn't have a way of choosing the things that you wanted to take with you, but you had to make difficult decisions on which things you might take quickly, I had the students brainstorm and think, okay, well, let's pretend you have to leave your home quickly. Let's pretend that you don't really get to choose everything. You can't take a TV, you can't take your refrigerator, and you can't take your video games, but what things can you carry with you? Like they do in our story. What things can you hold on your back in a backpack, a rolling backpack, anything? So students came up with some very interesting things. To me, I said, you know what, I don't know if I'd take a whole family photo album, but I'd definitely take some pictures with me. Some students said, oh, okay, well, we got to bring a cooler of food and water and stuff, and I thought that was a great idea. Some things that maybe would last a long time, because maybe you don't know where you're going or how long you would have to travel, you don't know. I would bring some clothes, maybe a rolling backpack, maybe a place to sleep or a way to get rest, sleeping bag. So it was interesting to see students' decisions that most children actually put not just pictures, but they said, I have to bring my family. I have to bring my family with me. I tried to remind them, we're talking about, obviously your family's with you, but what can you bring? And many people said, no, the family has to come. And I said, yes, of course. So then we moved back. We went back into our pages here, and we talked a little bit about, obviously making those hard decisions quickly is a problem. All right. Okay, moving on. So we've talked about who refugees are, how hard it would be to leave your home quickly, and why people come from all over the world, We briefly talked about the meaning of home. And it's for older students here, it says, home can mean different things to different people. And in the space below, it asks to write about, what home means to you. But in lieu of not everyone being able to write so much in such a short time, we actually drew a picture. And what's so sweet and interesting is that every single student in our class actually drew a picture of their family. And maybe they were inside a home, or they were in a room, or they had their dog or their pets or whatever it might be with them, but everyone had family with them. So the meaning of home, what does a picture of home look like? And we realize that no matter where you are, home can be with the people that you love, and the people that love you. So difficult to realize, but something that is so important when we're talking about refugee families is that we all come from different places, but we all have the same or similar things that matter to us. So we did a little research, and we looked at who has welcomed people with open arms that are refugees. So we looked a little bit at the top 3 countries, and then later I've written down 2 more. And these are in no any particular order, but Turkey has definitely welcomed the most refugee families with open arms. Next was Pakistan. I believe Uganda was 3rd, and Sudan was next. And then Germany was 5th, so these are out of order. But these top 5 countries have welcomed the most refugees around the world. Some obviously in the Middle East. Germany is in Europe, of course, and then we have Africa. So, and then the very last thing, talking about, recapping, okay, these people are not coming from just one part of the world, they're coming from all over the place. It's a difficult thing, and it's something that we all can talk about together. What are some things that we can do to help families? So we didn't get to talk about this in class because of time, but this is probably the most important part of it. 10 ways that we can help refugee families. So obviously the easiest thing we can do, because many of these people are not coming from places nearby us, so we can send money to organizations like the UN, the United Nations group. We can also send to the American Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, a lot of organizations that are recognized around the world can help with making our donations impactful for refugee families. There was an interesting thing, joining an online culture exchange. So, for example, if we're in class, we could Skype or Zoom or electronically meet with people from across the world. They could tell us about their culture, we talk about ours, or we have a learning exchange. Someone teaches me a language and I teach them a music course, So something cool like that is a great way to talk about refugee families, what they've been through, and how we can learn through each other. We can also teach others about refugees, just like I'm doing now with you and our culture students. But we can also teach others what it's like to have a refugee lifestyle and what's happening with them. We also can support refugee-owned businesses. So the United Nations, has a list of different businesses or entrepreneurs that we can support, buying items from refugee-owned or refugee-made things, for example, jewelry, clothing, different items around online. Very cool way to support refugee families. We can also read books by refugees. So this story is not written by a refugee family, but she's helping support refugee families through this story. There are thousands of books that are written not only by refugee adults, but children, and given their experiences and what it's like. So cool things to do with that. Maybe fundraising. This is my makeshift way of running a 5K. And so you can support organizations like the United Nations, the American Refugee Committee, things like that. And they send the money that's fundraised through different things like running groups or hosting parties, things like that. And they send it to the organizations that use that for help. We also can connect online. There's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Just being able to watch different family stories, talking about them, be connected with them. Volunteering is a big deal. It's difficult for students at a younger age, but we can always help volunteers who are working on site, either in those refugee affected areas in the world or even on site in America and different places. We can host a World Refugee Day party. It's always on June 20th. Obviously, we might have it virtually this year, but being able to show a video or going back to connecting online, connecting these things on June 20th with maybe people in your neighborhood, or you can talk to people and make a Zoom party out of it, things like that. Just getting the word out. And then continuing to watch, listen, and learn. These are simple things. Just being aware and having an understanding of this kind of impact it has made on families around the world. So, hi there. So going back to our cultures class, the way that I wanted to make this known was as a culminating lesson for our cultures group, but be it as it may, we do have one more week left, so I'm making up the week that was lost from our week that we were off due to our COVID-19 issues. But this was supposed to be something to bring awareness to students, and even though it can be a very traumatic and very brutal subject to talk about because so many people are hurting in so many places around the world, and so many of those people are children or people in need, it's something that all students and families should know about, and something that we can do is just being aware. So thank you for watching. Thank you for allowing your students to be culturally aware and understanding of each other and others. So let's continue to do that. I'll see you next week for our last class. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.